A millionaire CEO was waiting to interview a top candidate when a little girl walked in alone. She looked up and said, "My mom couldn't come, so I came instead." What happened next? No one in that room was ready for it. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. A child in the lobby of a corporate office. That was the receptionist's first thought when she looked up and saw a little girl standing just beyond the glass doors. She couldn't have been more than 9. Her hair was tied back in a messy ponytail, and she wore a navy blazer that nearly swallowed her frame. The sleeves dangled well past her fingertips, and her shoes, clearly an adult's, clomped awkwardly on the tile floor as she stepped forward. In her small hands, she clutched a single sheet of crumpled paper. A resume. The receptionist, Linda, stood up instinctively. "Sweetheart, are you lost?" she asked gently. The girl shook her head with quiet determination. "No, I'm here for the job interview." Linda blinked, taken aback. "Interview? For what job, honey?" "For the administrative assistant position," the girl said, her voice steady. "My mom, she couldn't come, so I came instead." Silence filled the lobby. Linda looked around, expecting to see someone else, an older sibling maybe, or a parent stepping forward with an explanation. But there was no one. Just the girl, standing tall, chin up, holding that resume like it was her sword and shield. "What's your mom's name?" Linda finally asked, her voice softening further. "Sarah Miller," the girl replied. She had to go to the hospital this morning, but she really needed this job. A lump formed in Linda's throat. She looked down at the paper the girl held out. Sure enough, it was a resume, creased and smudged, but clearly her mother's. Sarah Miller was typed in bold at the top. Beneath it, a list of experiences, office jobs, skills. Nothing fancy, but solid, honest work. Linda knelt down to the girl's level. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Emily." "Emily," Linda repeated. "That's a beautiful name. Did your mom ask you to come here?" Emily hesitated. "No. I heard her crying last night. She didn't think I was awake. She said she had to get this job or we might lose the apartment. She was really nervous about today. Then this morning she fainted in the kitchen. I called 911. The ambulance took her." Tears welled in the girl's eyes, but she blinked them back fiercely. "I didn't know what else to do, but I knew where she kept the resume. I remembered what time the interview was. I thought, maybe if I came, someone would listen." Linda pressed a hand to her mouth. It was all she could do not to cry right then and there. She stood, took a deep breath, and glanced toward the elevator. She knew the hiring manager, Mr. Grant, was up on the 12th floor. A serious man. No nonsense. But also human. "Emily," she said, "would you like to come with me upstairs for a minute?" Emily nodded, her small face determined again. Linda took her hand and led her into the elevator. Inside, the silence hummed between them. Linda didn't know what she was doing. This wasn't protocol, but somehow it felt like the only thing to do. When they reached the 12th floor, Linda approached the office of Mr. Grant and gently knocked. "Come in," came the gruff voice from inside. She pushed the door open. "Sir, I know this is unorthodox, but there's someone here you need to meet." Mr. Grant looked up, eyebrows raised as Emily stepped into the room. His expression shifted from confusion to disbelief. "Who is this?" "This is Emily Miller," Linda said. "Her mother, Sarah, had an interview scheduled with you today, but she's in the hospital." Emily came in her place because she didn't want her mother to lose the chance. There was a pause. Long, heavy. Emily stepped forward, hands shaking slightly as she held out the resume. "My mom's really smart. She works hard. She never gives up. Please give her a chance." Mr. Grant stared at her, then slowly reached out and took the paper. The silence stretched again until he finally spoke. "Linda, please get me Sarah Miller's contact information. We'll reschedule the interview when she's well." And Emily, "Yes, sir?" He smiled just barely. "You're a remarkable young lady. Your mother should be very proud." Emily left the building a little while later, still wearing her mother's oversized blazer, but walking with a lighter step. Linda watched her go, heart full. Later that week, Sarah Miller got the job, but it wasn't just her resume that got her in the door. It was her daughter's courage. Upstairs, on the 12th floor of the glass and steel high-rise, Mr. Jonathan Pierce sat behind a sleek mahogany desk, scanning resumes with surgical precision. His office overlooked the city skyline. a view as commanding as the man himself. Pierce, CEO of Veritas Marketing Solutions, was known for many things: his unmatched work ethic, his sharp business instincts, and, perhaps most famously, his lack of patience. Next candidate, he called, not looking up from the paper in front of him. His assistant, Amanda, lingered in the doorway a moment longer than usual. When he glanced up, her expression made him pause. "What is it now?" he asked. Voice clipped. Amanda stepped forward, fidgeting with the tablet in her hand. "Sir, this is going to sound strange. There's a little girl downstairs. She says she's here on behalf of her mom, Sarah Miller. Apparently, her mom had an interview today, but couldn't make it. She's in the hospital." Pierce's brow furrowed. "Is this a joke?" "No, sir. She's very serious. Brought her mother's resume and everything." The receptionist said the girl insisted she had to come. He let out a sharp breath and leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. "How old are we talking?" "Maybe 9, 10 at most." The office was silent for a moment that I in the world of marketing, perception was everything. And this sounded like a publicity stunt, or worse, a waste of his time. But there was something about Amanda's expression. She didn't believe it was a joke. And for her to even bring it to him meant it wasn't nothing. Curious, and admittedly a little annoyed, he stood. "Fine," he said, grabbing his blazer. "Bring her in." 2 minutes later, the elevator chimed, and the heavy glass door opened. In stepped a little girl in a too-big blazer, sleeves covering her hands, and shoes that flopped awkwardly as she walked. She clutched a single sheet of paper tightly, trying to keep her chin up despite the obvious nerves on her face. Pierce blinked, genuinely taken aback. This wasn't a prank. It wasn't a gimmick, that IT was real. "Hello," he said, surprised at how gentle his voice came out. The girl stopped a few feet from his desk, back straight. "Hi, I'm Emily Miller. My mom, Sarah Miller, was supposed to meet with you today, but she had to go to the hospital this morning." "I'm sorry to hear that," he said, gesturing to a chair. "Is she okay?" "She fainted. She's been really stressed," Emily explained. "She said this interview was really important. So I thought, maybe if I came and gave you her resume, it might help." She held out the paper, wrinkled and a little smudged, but legible. Pierce accepted it, scanning the resume quickly. Mid-level admin work. 10 years of experience. 2 jobs lost in the last year. Probably downsizing, based on the company names. Nothing extraordinary on paper, but nothing weak either. "What made you come here, Emily?" he asked, curious now. Girl hesitated, then answered honestly. "Last night, I heard her crying. She didn't know I was awake. She said we might lose our apartment if she didn't get this job. And this morning, when she collapsed, I got really scared. But after the ambulance left, I saw her resume on the kitchen table. I remembered her talking about the time and the address." Pierce felt something shift in his chest. He didn't usually do feelings. But this hit differently. "And you came all by yourself?" She nodded. "I just wanted someone to know she tried. That she wanted to be here." He looked at Amanda, who stood silently by the door, eyes slightly wide. Then he looked back at Emily. "Tell you what," he said. "We'll reschedule. As soon as your mom is feeling better, she can come in. No penalty. No missed opportunity." Emily's shoulders relaxed, the tension falling away like a weight. "Really?" "Yes," Pierce said. "And in the meantime, I'll make sure HR knows she gets a priority call back." A small smile spread across Emily's face, tired but grateful. "Thank you, sir." Pierce stood and extended his hand. "You did something very brave today. Your mom's lucky to have you." Emily shook his hand, her tiny fingers swallowed. By his firm grip, she turned to leave. Amanda opened the door for her, then lingered a moment. "That was not what I expected from you," she said softly, once Emily was gone. Pierce let out a breath, looking out at the skyline again. Neither was she. A week later, Sarah Miller sat nervously across from Jonathan Pierce in his office, freshly recovered and ready. "You have quite the daughter," he told her, smiling faintly. And that was how Sarah Miller got the job, thanks to the boldest interview Pierce had ever seen. The room went still the moment the little girl stepped inside. Point 3 executives sat around a long table. Jonathan Pierce at the head, flanked by 2 senior managers, laptops open, resumes spread out, water glasses untouched. It was supposed to be a routine day of interviews. Efficient, predictable, but this This was anything but routine. She couldn't have been more than 9. Dressed in her mother's oversized blazer, the sleeves hanging well past her fingertips, and clunky shoes. That made every step echo. Her ponytail was slightly lopsided, as if tied in a hurry. And in her hands, she clutched a single sheet of paper like it was something sacred. The resume. She walked up to the table without hesitation and placed the resume down in front of Mr. Pierce. My mom told me this was her big chance, she said clearly. She practiced all night. But then this morning, she collapsed. I rode the bus to come here. No one spoke. The marketing director shifted slightly in his chair. The HR manager opened her mouth, then closed it again. Jonathan Pierce, known for his composed demeanor and sharp, analytical mind, found himself, oddly, at a loss for words. After a moment, he leaned forward. His voice was quieter than usual. Do you even know what this company does? The girl nodded confidently. Marketing. My mom said it means helping people sell things better. She said she was good at it. One time, she helped the bakery on our street get more customers by making flyers and putting them in all the mailboxes. After that, more people came. A soft chuckle escaped from one of the managers. Jonathan smiled faintly. That's not wrong. The little girl, still standing, looked around the room. Her eyes weren't pleading. They weren't asking for pity. She was calm, brave, present. More than most adults he interviewed. Why did you come? He asked her, sincerely curious now. She paused, then, with a breath, she answered, because she needed this job. And because she never gives up on me. So I didn't want to give up on her. That silence that followed wasn't awkward. It wasn't uncomfortable. It was reverent. There was something in her words, a kind of strength, raw and unfiltered, that struck everyone in the room. It wasn't just the bravery of a child showing up alone. It was the loyalty, the heart, the belief. Jonathan picked up the resume and looked it over again. It wasn't the most impressive piece of paper he'd ever seen. But now, it felt different. It felt earned. He looked at the little girl again. What's your name? Emily, she replied. Well, Emily, he said, leaning forward with both hands on the table. Your mom raised someone very brave. That tells me something about her character, too. Emily gave a small smile, then nervously glanced at the door. Is she going to lose the job chance? Jonathan sat back. No, he said firmly. She's not. We're going to reschedule her interview. And I'll make sure it's not just a formality. She's already impressed us. And she hasn't even walked through the door yet. A quiet sigh of relief escaped Emily's lips. Amanda, the assistant, gently stepped in and placed a hand on the girl's shoulder. Come on, let's get you a snack while we call your mom. As Emily turned to go, Jonathan called after her. Tell your mom. We're rooting for her. Emily nodded, then walked out, still in that oversized blazer, sleeves flapping softly with every step. When the door closed, the room stayed silent a moment longer. The HR manager was the first to speak. That was the most meaningful 5 minutes I've ever had in this office. The marketing director leaned back. Same. I think we all just got interviewed. Jonathan didn't say anything at first. He stared at the resume in his hand, tracing the folded crease running through the middle. Then he placed it on top of the stack, right at the front. I don't care what's on the rest of these, he said. This one stays at the top. And with that, the meeting resumed, except everything had changed, not because of a degree, not because of a pitch-perfect answer, but because a little girl reminded them what drive, love, and loyalty really looked like. And sometimes that's the best resume of all. Mr. Jonathan Pierce leaned back in his leather chair, watching the little girl standing across from him with quiet wonder. Most people came into interviews anxious, rehearsed, plastering on fake smiles while trying to say all the right things. But this girl? She came in with none of that. No pretense. No performance. She came in because of love. And because she had more courage in her small frame than many adults he'd met in years of hiring. Tell me about your mom, he said gently, folding his hands in front of him. The girl, Emily, brightened instantly. She works at night, cleaning buildings. She always says I'm her sunshine, even when she's really tired. Sometimes she comes home and her feet hurt so bad. She just lies on the couch and sings to me so she doesn't fall asleep. Too early. A soft silence settled over the room. She even taught me how to write a resume, Emily added proudly, her small hands brushing against the paper on the table. We practiced typing it together. She let me fix the spelling. Mr. Pierce smiled. Despite himself, .by now, his hiring team had quietly gathered just inside the room. Word had spread fast. A few people leaned against the wall, others peeked from behind door frames. Some held tissues in their hands, eyes glistening. No one had said a word, but they didn't need to. The moment was speaking for itself. Jonathan looked down at the resume again. Sarah Miller, single mother, 10 years of administrative work. She'd managed accounts for a handful of small businesses, organized team reports, scheduled meetings. She even had a short stint in marketing support, probably where she picked up flyer design for the neighborhood bakery. Then his eyes paused on the timeline. There was a 2-year gap in her employment history. He didn't need to ask why he already knew. Whether it was illness, a family crisis, or simply life being cruel, it didn't matter. She'd fought her way back to this moment, only to collapse on the very day that might have changed everything. He looked up again. Emily, do you know what kind of salary your mom was hoping for? Emily blinked. Her confidence faltered for the first time. She looked down, then back up, her voice barely above a whisper. Just enough so we can stop moving from place to place. The words landed like a weight in the room. Jonathan felt something in his chest shift. Not pity. No, something deeper. The kind of ache that comes when a child says something far too grown up for their age. He glanced at Amanda, his assistant, who was now standing in the corner, eyes wet, lips pressed together. Emily, he said, his voice steady now. Thank you for coming here today. You did something very brave. And you told us more about your mom than any resume ever could. Emily gave a small nod. Will she still get a chance? Jonathan leaned forward. She's already getting it. We're going to call her as soon as she's feeling better. Her interview is waiting for her. And I promise you, it won't be just a formality. Emily's eyes lit up again, hopeful, grateful. Really, he said. In fact, I'll make sure the HR team reviews her salary expectations and gives her what's fair, maybe even a little more. A light smile broke across Emily's face, the first real one since she'd walked in. She's really good, she said again. And she never quits. Jonathan nodded, then stood from his chair. And neither do you. He extended his hand across the table. Emily stepped forward and shook it, small fingers meeting his larger ones in a gesture far more symbolic than she could possibly know. As she turned to leave, Amanda came forward to walk her out. The room remained silent, watching her go. After the door closed, someone on the team spoke up softly. Sir, I don't think there's anything left to discuss. Jonathan looked at the resume one more time. Then, with quiet resolution, he placed it in a red folder, reserved for final candidates. No, he said. I think we've already made our best hire today. Later that week, when Sarah Miller recovered enough to take a phone call, she was stunned to learn she still had the opportunity. What she didn't know, until much later, was that her daughter didn't just save the interview. She became it. And in doing so, she changed everything. The room was completely silent, and no one moved. No one blinked. Then Mr. Jonathan Pierce, CEO, decision maker, the man whose time was booked in 15-minute blocks, stood up slowly from his seat. He didn't speak immediately. Instead, he walked around the long, polished table, the kind reserved for board meetings and million-dollar deals. His steps were quiet, deliberate. And then, he knelt, right in front of her, face to face with the little girl who had walked in wearing someone else's shoes, carrying more courage than most grown-ups ever would. What's your name? He asked gently. The girl smiled shyly. Lily. He nodded, meeting her eyes with sincerity. Well, Lily, you just got your mom the job. Her eyes widened. Really, he said. Your mom showed me her skills on paper. But you showed me something even more important. Heart, loyalty, and determination. And if she raised you, then I know exactly what kind of person she is. A wave of emotion rippled across the room. And then, soft at first, came applause. It started with Amanda, the assistant who had first brought Lily up to the 12th floor. Then the HR manager joined in. Then the marketing director. Within seconds, the entire hiring team was clapping. Not because it was protocol, but because something real had happened in that room. Something bigger than bullet points or job descriptions. Something human. Later that day, Jonathan made a call that no one expected. He cleared his schedule, told his driver to take him to St. Francis Medical Center. And there, on the third floor, he walked into a small hospital room where a pale but alert woman sat upright in a bed, for in her arm. Her eyes filled with confusion when she saw him walk in. "Ms. Miller," he asked, offering a warm smile. Sarah Miller blinked. "Yes?" He walked over and handed her a simple envelope. Inside, an official job offer. "I wanted to deliver this personally," he said. "Not just because you earned it, but because your daughter reminded all of us what true strength looks like." Sarah opened the envelope with shaking hands. As she read the offer, full-time, with benefits, and more than fair pay, her eyes welled up. "She did all that?" she whispered. He nodded. "She did." Tears streamed down her cheeks, and she clutched the paper to her chest. But she wasn't just crying because she got the job. She cried because her little girl, her brave, determined Lily, had believed in her when she felt like she had nothing left to give. When her body gave out, when her spirit almost did too, her daughter had stood in the gap and gave her hope when she had none. Back at the office, Lily sat in the lobby, swinging her feet, holding a chocolate bar someone from HR had given her when her mom returned a few days later. Healthy, dressed in fresh clothes, and glowing with pride, everyone stood to greet her like she was already part of the family. Because she was. Sometimes, job interviews aren't about perfect answers or flawless resumes. Sometimes, it's about heart, that it's about the people who fight for us when we're too weak to fight for ourselves. And on that ordinary Tuesday morning, a little girl walked into a cold, professional office, carrying nothing but paper, oversized shoes, and pure courage. And she reminded a millionaire CEO of what real leadership looks like, of what real family looks like, and of what it means to show up for someone you love. Speech balloon: what would you do if someone you loved needed you to be brave? Backhand index pointing down, tell us in the comments. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. We share real, inspiring moments that remind us what truly matters. Glowing star, until next time, stay kind, stay brave, and never underestimate the power of love.